Well, I have you watching A Midsummer Night's Dream, I hope, the 2003 version with Kevin Kline. You'll recognize some of those other actors as well. This is the 82nd day first video, and only video today. My hand was shaking when I was, this is information about a couple of days ago, when I showed you those charts. It's just that cold down here in the barn, and it doesn't matter normally when the camera's there, but when I was holding the camera to show you those charts, I noticed that my hand was shaking. It was better when I held it with two hands. But in any case, pause. Just hit pause, and then you can read those charts. It gets around it. All right, I left, let's see, I left the lovers here. That was from the other day, yesterday. I left them there. I'll tell you why in a little bit. But the fourth set of characters, to understand this play, and there was a long time where I just gave up. I said to my students, I can't explain the plot. It's just too complicated. Well, as long as you sort it out into four sets of characters, you can understand it. There are the fairies. The fairies. Now, fairies nowadays, ever since sort of Tinkerbell, they're sort of cute little things. But there was a time, really in Shakespeare's time even, fairies were a little scary. You can pick that up a little bit, well, I was going to say in Tolkien's books. Well, Tolkien actually wrote an essay on that. Most people don't know about that essay, but they were once kind of scary. Well, that's the way these fairies probably were in Shakespeare's day. Anyway, Oberon is king of the fairies, and Titania's queen of the fairies, but the two of them are fighting. They're in the woods. Puck is another character who becomes very major. Puck is the servant to Oberon. What these two are fighting over is the fact that Titania has got a changeling boy that Oberon wants, and Titania refuses to give him up. Oberon wants the boy as his servant, sort of as his page. Titania refuses to give him up, and they're fighting over that. Well, they're in the woods. The woods becomes a very important part of this play. And what I'm going to ask you to watch today is basically all in the woods. The characters get lost in the woods and all this kind of stuff goes on. Well, the reason the king and the queen of the fairies are there is they've come to celebrate Theseus and Hippolyta's wedding day. You listen to this. I don't have to tell you the whole thing. You can figure it out if you try hard enough. And a love potion becomes a major character. Puck is sent to get a love potion because Oberon feels sorry for Helena. I'll tell you about that in just a moment. So anyway, kind of at the level of a character, and this I would put into your notes as a way to jog your memory about A Midsummer Night's Dream. Now I told you earlier that there's not very much body humor in A Midsummer Night's Dream. However, in this play, there is a body sight gag, I call it. Shakespeare didn't write it, but you'll see it. If you watch closely, you'll certainly see it. It has to do with when you talk about men and horses, a certain gag often comes to mind, and in this case it's a man and a donkey. Well, in any case, if you look for it, you'll see it. I don't want to explain it any more than that. All right. Maybe I'll save this for later. Let me go back to this. What happens in the woods is, going into the woods, Demetrius and Lysander both want Hermia. And poor Helena, she goes there along, and nobody loves Helena. Demetrius is so mean to Helena. Well, Oberon feels sorry for Helena and orders Puck to go get a love potion and change this guy's mind. And the love potion works. The first thing you see when you open your eyes after it's been put on there, you fall in love with that. There's an allusion to this in Willow, actually, where a character falls in love with a cat, actually, and then, well, let that go. Anyway, Puck puts it on the wrong eyes, and Lysander, he has it on his eyes, and when he wakes up, he sees Helena. So now Lysander loves Helena, and they realize that they've made a big mistake. Hermia, she doesn't understand what's going on. They realize they made a big mistake, so Puck is supposed to put it on Demetrius's eyes, which he does. Now Demetrius also loves Helena. Now nobody loves Hermia. And Helena, for her part, she is convinced that all three of them have ganged up on her to make fun of her, because she knows perfectly well that these guys don't love her, that they love Hermia instead. And it gets to be quite a scene. These two had been the very closest of friends, very dear friends, but the two of them end up fighting, and it's a pretty memorable scene. I guess I won't tell you in advance. I'll just let you see that the way they are. Wonderful wordplay about how Hermia is short, and Helena makes fun of her being short, and I suppose I would spoil it if I said too much more. Anyway, by the end, oh yes, and probably the most memorable part of the whole thing is that Puck, out of orneriness, when the town dummies go into the woods to practice their play, where they'll be private, no one will see them, Puck, out of orneriness, changes Bottom's head into the head of a donkey. I was going to wear a donkey head. I'll see if I can remember to do that tomorrow. Anyway, they all the other town dummies run away, and Oberon, because he's angry with Titania, has put the love potion on her eyes. She wakes up and she sees Bottom with the head of a donkey, falls in love with him, and he's got these big ears and hairy face, and there's all this humor that comes from the fact that this beautiful woman is in love with this guy with the head of a donkey. So that's in there too. Well, I'm going to ask you to watch almost an hour of this now. I'd like you to go that far in the movie, and that's too much actually for one day in school. I'm kind of cheating on that. It would take 2 days in school, maybe even 3, to get as far as I'm getting using regular. I think you could do it in two school days if you didn't have a lot of discussion. But I'd like you to watch that, and I think the key to so much of this, now I'm ready to deal with this, is to love language. The Elizabethans loved their language. They were so proud of English. They loved their language, and they listened closely. And you really ought to try to get every word if you could. It was a problem for me in class. If some kid would speak out or something, I'd end up having to pause it and rewind and have the kids hear it again, because I wanted them to hear every word. Now with subtitles, that's easier done. And the sound, you know. But if you don't love language, you may not be so taken with it. But I hope you are, and I've coached you now in a good bit of viewing. If you can, stop right there, and then that'll make it fine for tomorrow. I'll coach you into watching the end, and the end is very much fun. All right, good luck. Off you go.